The market street was loud, filled with the noise of vendors shouting and machines humming, but no one noticed the small alien girl crawling near the trash bins. Her body was thin, her skin pale, and her big eyes looked desperate as she searched for food. She was starving, and her stomach made painful sounds. In the shadows, a wild dog crept closer. Its fur was dirty, and its yellow eyes glowed with hunger. It had been following her for a while. Waiting for the right moment, the girl found a piece of bread, hard and old. But before she could lift it to her mouth, the dog growled, sharp teeth flashing. She froze, clutching the bread like a treasure. The dog barked and jumped forward. She hissed back, trying to look, strong, but her arms shook with weakness. The people nearby glanced at her for a second, then turned away. No one wanted trouble. No one cared for a starving alien child. The dog lunged, snapping at the bread. She pulled it back, but the dog scratched her arm with its claws. She cried out, pain burning through her small body. Still, she didn't let go. That bread was the only thing between her and death. Her blood dripped on the dirty ground, but she kept fighting. Her thin hands struck the dog, but it was useless. The beast was stronger. It bit into her shoulder and she screamed. The bread fell from her hands. The dog's teeth sank deeper, and the world around her blurred with pain. She thought this was the end. She thought she would die here in the dirt like trash. But then footsteps stopped near her. Heavy boots planted on the ground, a shadow loomed over her. The dog growled, turning its head. A loud voice rang out, "Hey!" The alien girl blinked. Her vision was clouded, but she saw him. Tall, human, his clothes rough and worn, his eyes were sharp, his jaw tense. He held nothing but his bare hands, yet he stepped toward the dog without fear. The dog growled again, showing its bloody teeth, but the human bent down, grabbed a loose piece of pipe from the ground and swung it with force. The metal hit the ground with a loud clang. The dog yelped and jumped back, its ears folded, and slowly it backed away, dragging its tail between its legs before running into the dark. The girl lay on the ground, bleeding and shaking, her tiny fingers still curled as if holding the bread that was no longer there. She looked at the human, not knowing if he was friend or enemy. For her, humans were the reason she had lost her family, the reason she had been abandoned. The man knelt beside her. His rough hands reached toward her wounds, but she tried to push him away weakly. "Don't touch me," her broken voice whispered. He paused. His eyes softened, and he spoke quietly. "You're hurt. You need help." She shook her head. Fear, still strong, but then the pain in her arm made her gasp. Her strength left her. She could no longer resist. The man tore a piece of cloth from his sleeve. His hands were careful as he wrapped it around her bleeding arm. His touch was firm, but gentle. The girl's heart pounded fast. She had never felt human hands before, only heard stories of how cruel they were, yet here he was bandaging her wounds. People in the market stared for a moment, then turned away again. Some whispered, shaking their heads. "A fool helping a stray alien," they muttered. The man ignored them. He looked at the girl, who was trembling and weak. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried, but her legs gave out. He caught her before she fell. His arms were strong, warm, nothing like the cold world she had known. She looked up at him with frightened eyes. Why are you helping me?" The man didn't answer. Right away, his face showed something deep, something heavy. Finally, he said, "Because no one else will." The girl's lips trembled. She didn't trust him, not yet. But inside her chest, a small spark of hope lit for the first time in a long while. The man lifted her carefully like she was something precious instead of trash. Her blood stained his shirt, but he didn't care. He glanced once more at the street, at the people, who ignored them, then turned away, carrying her with him. The girl's eyes slowly closed, her body giving in to exhaustion. But her last thought before darkness took her was strange. She thought of the human's hands, not cruel, not cold, but gentle and warm, and deep in her heart she wondered, what would become of her now? The human walked through the narrow alleys carrying the alien girl in his arms. Her body was light, too light, as if the bones inside her frame were hollow. Blood still stained her shoulder and arm. His shirt was ruined, but he didn't care. His mind was heavy with questions. Why had he stopped? Why had he helped her? He could have walked away like everyone else. No one would have blamed him. Humans were not welcome here. The alien market hated their kind. Every glance at him was filled with suspicion or disgust. Still, he had stepped forward, chased the dog, and lifted her from the dirt. The girl stirred weakly. Her eyes opened a little. She whispered, "Put me down. You'll get in trouble." Her voice was fragile, but her words carried fear. She had seen humans before, but always from far away. Always hated. Always blamed. She could not understand why this one risked himself for her. The man slowed, setting her gently against the wall of an empty shop. He crouched in front of her. His eyes scanned the wound on her shoulder. It was deep, still bleeding. He pulled out a small pouch from his belt. Inside was an old medical kit. Cheap, but better than nothing. The girl gasped when he cleaned the wound. The sting made her flinch. She tried to pull back, but his grip was steady, not harsh. He said quietly, "Stay still. It will hurt less if you don't fight." She stared at his face. His jaw was rough with stubble, his eyes tired but firm. There was no cruelty in them. Only focus. Only care. It confused her. She had been taught all her life that humans were selfish and dangerous, but now one was kneeling in the dirt to save her. He tied a clean strip of cloth around her shoulder, tight enough to stop the bleeding, then leaned back with a sigh. "It's not perfect, but it will keep you alive," he muttered. The girl hugged herself, shivering, her voice cracked. "Why? Why help me? You don't even know me." The man looked at her for a long moment. He almost didn't answer, but finally he said, "Because I do know. I know what hunger looks like. I know what it feels like to fight for scraps." His tone was quiet but heavy with memory. The girl blinked, surprised. She had never thought of a human suffering like she had. In her world, humans were always painted as strong, cruel conquerors, not as people who knew pain. The man reached into his bag and pulled out a small piece of bread and a flask of water. He handed them to her. She stared at them, then at him, suspicion in her eyes. Was this a trick? Did he want something in return? But her hunger was too great. Her shaking hands took the bread. She bit slowly, tasting food that wasn't rotten for the first time in days. Tears slipped from her eyes without her noticing. The human didn't mock her. He just sat silently, watching the empty street as if guarding her while she ate. For a while there was only silence, the sound of chewing, the soft drip of water, and the distant hum of the market. The girl finally whispered, "My people, they would never help me like this." The man's lips pressed into a line. His voice was low. "Sometimes the ones closest to you turn away. Sometimes a stranger is all you have left." The words struck her heart. They felt true. Her eyes softened. As she looked at him again, for the first time she didn't only see a human, she saw someone who understood. But then, footsteps echoed at the end of the alley. The girl stiffened, her eyes widened with panic. "They're coming," she whispered. The man turned his head sharply. Two alien guards appeared, their armor scratched, their eyes unfriendly. They looked at the human first, then at the girl sitting by the wall. "What are you doing here, human?" one guard barked. "This is not your place." The man stood slowly, his body tense but calm. "She was hurt? I helped her," he said firmly. The guards laughed cruelly. "Helping? A human helping one of us? Don't joke." One of them pointed. His spear at the girl. "She's nothing but a beggar. Leave her or you'll regret it." The girl's heart pounded. She looked up at him, afraid. Would he leave her now? Would he step away to save himself? That was what most humans would do. That was what anyone would do. But the man did not move. He placed himself in front of her, shielding her small body with his own. His voice was steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me," the guard sneered. "You'll die for her. She's not even your kind." The man's eyes hardened. Kind doesn't matter, he said. His hand tightened around the piece of pipe he still carried from the fight with the dog. His choice was clear. He would not abandon her. The girl's chest ached. Her wounds still burned, but for the first time in her life, she felt something strange, something new. It was not fear. It was not hunger. It was hope. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Why does he care? The alley grew tense, the guards circling, the man ready to fight. The girl clutched the last crumb of bread in her hand, her eyes locked on him, wondering if this human, this stranger, would truly risk his life for her. And deep inside, she realized, his choice was already made. The night was colder than the girl expected. The wind moved through the broken alleys like sharp knives. The human had found an abandoned corner behind a ruined shop. He set her down gently on a wooden crate, and then lit a small fire with broken scraps. The flames flickered, giving a little warmth and light. The girl pulled her knees close, shivering, her body still weak from hunger, her wound still aching. She looked at the human suspiciously. He had not left her when the guards threatened. He had not taken anything from her. Instead, he was now searching his old pack for food. He pulled out a tin container. Inside was soup, thick and simple. He poured it into a dented metal cup and placed it near the fire until steam rose from it. The smell reached the girl's nose, and her stomach twisted painfully. She had eaten rotten scraps for weeks. She had fought animals for crumbs, but this smell, it was rich, warm, alive. Her eyes followed the cup like it was treasure. Yet she stayed still, afraid. Maybe it was a trick. Maybe he would demand something in return. The man noticed her hesitation. He did not push the cup toward her right away. Instead, he took a spoon and sipped from it himself. "See? Safe," he said, his voice calm without force. She blinked, surprised. Slowly, she reached out with trembling hands. He passed the cup to her carefully, like handing over something precious. She wrapped her thin fingers around the warm metal. For a moment, she just held it, feeling the heat against her skin. It was the first warmth she had felt in months. Finally, she took a sip. The hot liquid slid down her throat, and she gasped softly. Tears filled her eyes without warning. It was not just food. It was kindness. And kindness was something she had forgotten existed. The human watched quietly. He did not laugh, did not mock her. He simply let her eat. Each spoonful she took was slow, shaky, but filled with silent relief. When she finished, he handed her a small piece of bread, fresher than the one she had fought the dog for. She held it carefully, almost reverently, before eating. For the first time in a long time, her body stopped shaking. The fire, the food, the bandages, everything felt unreal, she whispered, almost too soft to hear. "Why are you doing this? I'm not human. I'm nothing to you." The man looked at the fire. His face was half hidden by the flickering glow. After a long pause, he said, "Because once, I was the one starving, and someone gave me food when no one else cared." His voice was heavy, full of memory. She tilted her head, staring at him. The idea of a human starving felt strange to her. In her mind, humans were always powerful, always cruel. But his words carried no lie. She could feel it. He looked at her then, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "I don't care what you are. Hungry is hungry, wounded is wounded. That's all that matters." The girl's chest tightened. She didn't know how to respond. Her people had taught her to fear and hate humans, yet this one had fought for her, fed her, cared for her. The stories she had believed all her life began to break inside her mind. Silence filled the night, broken only by the crackle of the fire. The girl finally whispered, "My name, it's Lyra." Her voice shook as she said it, as if she had forgotten how to speak her own name. The man nodded once. "Lyra," he repeated. "I'm Callan." Lyra blinked, hearing his name. It was strange, strong, but it made him more real. Not just a shadow or rumor of humanity. For the first time, she dared to ask, "Will you leave me when the night ends?" Her question was sharp, filled with fear, because deep inside she already knew what it meant to be abandoned. Callan did not answer immediately. He looked at the stars above, distant and cold. Then he said, "Not if you want me to stay." Her lips parted, she had no words. No one had ever given her such a choice. Her people had thrown her aside, the guards had mocked her, but this man, this human stranger, was offering her something different. Before she could respond, a noise came from the darkness. Both of them turned, the sound of claws scratching against stone echoed. A low growl followed. The wild dog had returned, but this time it was not alone. Shadows moved. 2 more dogs slinking out from the alley. Their eyes glowed. Their teeth shone white in the firelight. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Fear gripped her body. Callan stood quickly, grabbing the metal pipe again. His jaw tightened. He placed himself in front of her without hesitation. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. Lyra's heart pounded. As she watched his back, broad and unshaken, her hands shook, clutching the edge of the crate she sat on. He was only one man, and yet he faced 3 beasts without fear. The dogs circled slowly, growling louder. The fire crackled between them. The night grew colder, and Lyra realized with a deep ache in her chest, this meal, this warmth, this kindness, it might be their last. But even as danger closed in, she could not stop thinking of the taste of the soup, the warmth of the bread, and the sound of his voice saying her name. It was more than a meal. It was a memory she would never forget. The night grew darker after the dogs finally fled. Their growls faded into the distance, leaving only silence and the crackle of the fire. Callan stood still, breathing hard. His hands were tight around the pipe. His knuckles were pale. He had chased away beasts twice his size, but his face stayed calm. Lyra, sitting on the crate, couldn't take her eyes off him. Her heart still pounded in fear. Yet another feeling grew inside her. Something heavier, something she couldn't name. He had risked himself again, not once, not twice, but every time danger came near. Callan lowered the pipe and sat on the ground near the fire. He rubbed the sweat from his brow. His chest rose and fell slowly. "They'll be back," he muttered. Hunger drives them, and hunger doesn't stop. Lyra hugged her knees tighter. Her small body shook. Her wounds still throbbed. But she whispered softly, "Why do you keep protecting me? I am not worth the fight." Callan turned his head toward her. His eyes met hers in the glow of the fire. "Everyone is worth the fight," he said quietly, "even if the world tells you otherwise." His words pressed against her chest like a weight. She wanted to believe him, but her mind remembered too much pain. Too many voices had told her she was nothing, less than nothing. The silence stretched long. Finally, Callan spoke again. "Tell me, Lyra, how did you end up like this?" Her throat tightened. She had not spoken her story to anyone, not even to herself. Memories were sharp, they cut like glass. But the warmth of the fire, the food still in her belly, and the human's steady eyes made her open her mouth. "My family," she began, her voice thin. "They were taken in the war. Humans attacked our village, or so we were told. The soldiers came with fire and machines. My father never returned. My mother, she tried to protect me, but she was crushed under falling stone." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to continue. "After that I ran, I begged, but no one helped. They looked at me and said it was my fault. They said humans caused it all." Her eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly, ashamed. "I believed them. I hated your kind. I thought every human was a monster. But then, you came." Callan listened in silence. His jaw clenched. His eyes darkened. When she finished, he didn't speak for a long time. The firelight flickered across his face, showing the weight of his thoughts. Finally, he said, "Not every story you've been told is true." His voice was low but steady. "There was war, yes, but not all humans wanted it. Some of us fought to stop it. Some of us lost families too." Lyra's breath caught. She stared at him. You lost someone, too?" Callan nodded slowly. His gaze shifted to the flames. "My brother," he said. "He was caught in a crossfire. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't part of the fight. But war doesn't ask who is guilty or innocent. It just takes. The fire popped, a spark flying into the night. Lyra swallowed hard. So you know, she whispered. You know how it feels. Callan's shoulders tensed. I know too well, he answered. That's why I couldn't walk away when I saw you. Starving, bleeding, alone. It reminded me of what I once was. His voice cracked slightly at the edges, but he hid it quickly. His eyes hardened again, strong and unshaken. Lyra's heart twisted. For so long she had thought humans were only the cause of pain. Yet here sat one carrying his own scars. He was not the monster of her stories. He was broken. Like her. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Then why does everyone still hate you? Why do they call you cruel?" Callan gave a bitter smile. Because hate is easier than truth. If they can blame humans for everything, they don't have to face their own failures and humans. We are guilty of many things, but not all. Not always. Lyra lowered her head. Her tears fell silently into the dirt. She thought of the faces that had turned away when she begged for food. They had been her own people, not humans. She remembered. The guards who mocked her, the merchants who pushed her aside. None of them had offered her help, only this stranger had. She whispered again, softer this time. I don't know what to believe anymore. Callan looked at her. His voice grew calm, almost gentle. Believe what you see, Lyra, not what you are told. Look at my hands. He raised them, rough, scarred, but steady. Do they feel like the hands of a monster? She stared, remembering the touch of his fingers when he tied her wounds, firm but gentle, warm, not cold. Her lips trembled, but she shook her head. No, she said, almost in disbelief. They don't. The fire burned low. Shadows stretched, longer. The night was quiet again, but something had shifted between them. Lyra had shared her pain and Callan had revealed his own. Two strangers from two hated sides now sat together, tied not by blood or race but by loss, hunger, and the fragile spark of trust. Lyra leaned back against the crate, her eyes growing heavy. The warmth of the fire and the sound of Callan's breathing made her feel something she had not felt in a long time, safe. And as sleep slowly pulled her down, she whispered one last thought into the night. Maybe. Not all humans are monsters after all. Callan heard her words. His eyes softened. He looked up at the stars and let out a slow breath. His whisper was lost to the wind. And maybe not all aliens are enemies. The night was restless. The fire burned low and the shadows stretched like claws across the alley. Lyra tried to sleep, but every sound made her flinch. Every echo of footsteps in the distance reminded her of hunger, pain, and the dog's fangs. Callan sat awake, his back against the wall. The pipe rested across his knees. His eyes scanned the darkness. He had learned long ago that danger never came only once. If hunger lived in a creature's belly, it would always return. The silence broke suddenly. A low growl rolled through the air. Callan's head snapped up. His muscles tightened. He gripped the pipe. From the edge of the shadows, two glowing eyes appeared. Then another, and another. The dog had returned, but this time, it wasn't alone. A whole pack stepped forward, their teeth glinting in the faint firelight. Their ribs showed beneath their fur. Their bodies desperate with starvation. Lyra gasped and pulled herself back against the crate. Her heart thundered in her chest. They came back, she whispered, her voice shaking. Callan rose slowly, placing himself in front of her again. His voice was firm but calm. Stay behind me. Don't move. The pack circled, their paws scratching against the broken stones. Their growls blended together into a chilling sound. The biggest one, scarred across its muzzle, stepped closer. Its eyes burned with hunger. It remembered the human who had chased it away before. Now it wanted revenge. Callan lifted the pipe, his stance steady, his breath controlled. He looked like a man ready to face death without fear. Lyra gripped the edge of the crate, her nails digging into the wood. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs trembled too much. The largest dog leapt forward with a snarl. Callan swung the pipe with all his strength. The metal struck its side, and the beast yelped, rolling across the ground. But two more lunged at him. Their jaws snapped. One bit into his arm, and Callan groaned, his teeth gritting against the pain. Lyra cried out, "No!" He slammed the pipe against the dog's skull, forcing it to release his arm. Blood ran down his sleeve, but he didn't falter. He stepped back, standing firm, protecting her. The pack circled tighter, snapping and lunging. Callan's strikes were fierce, but he was only one man. The firelight flickered wildly, shadows dancing on the walls. Lyra's fear grew unbearable. She saw blood staining his arm, his movements slowing. She wanted to help, but what could she do? She had no weapon, no strength. She was small, wounded, weak. Her breath came fast. Her mind screamed, "I can't just sit here." Then her eyes fell on a broken glass bottle lying near the crate. Her hands shook as she grabbed it. The sharp edge glimmered faintly in the firelight. She crawled forward, her body screaming in pain, and swung the glass when one of the dogs lunged too close. The shard cut across its face. The beast yelped and backed away. For a moment, everything froze. Callan turned his head sharply, his eyes wide with surprise. He saw her, Lyra, trembling but standing in front of him, holding broken glass like a blade. The moment broke as two more dogs rushed in. Callan struck one, and Lyra slashed at the other. Her arm was weak, but the strike was enough to make it hesitate. Together they fought back, minutes stretched like hours. Their breaths grew ragged. Callan's shirt was torn and bloody. Lyra's hands burned from gripping the glass too tightly. The pack snarled, snapping again and again, but the human and alien stood side by side, refusing to fall. Finally, after what felt like forever, the largest dog growled one last time, then turned away. Its ears flat, its tail low. It limped into the shadows. The rest of the pack followed, fading into the night. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the fire and their heavy breathing. Callan dropped the pipe, his arm bleeding freely now. His legs trembled, but he stayed standing. His eyes scanned the alley until he was sure the danger was gone. Lyra dropped the broken glass. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Tears spilled down. Her cheeks, she whispered. "We did it. We survived." Callan looked at her, his face pale but determined. A faint smile touched his lips. "You fought," he said, his voice hoarse. "You didn't give up." Her lips trembled. She looked at her bloody hands, shocked at what she had done. She whispered, "I was so scared." Callan's voice softened. "Fear doesn't matter. What matters is you stood. You fought when it counted." Her heart ached. She had never heard such words before. No one had ever told her she was strong. Her people had only called her weak, worthless. But now, this human had seen her differently. Callan staggered suddenly, his wound bleeding badly. Lyra rushed forward and caught his arm. Her small hands pressed against the cut. "You saved me," she whispered. "Now let me save you." She tore strips from her torn dress and tied them around his arm. Her fingers worked clumsily, but she did not stop. Her tears dripped onto his skin as she whispered, "Don't you dare leave me now." Callan looked at her, his tired eyes soft. "I'm not going anywhere," he murmured. The fire burned low, the alley quiet once more, but something had changed. No longer was Lyra only the weak one being saved. She had stood, she had fought, and now their bond was stronger than fear. The danger had returned, but together they had survived. And in the silence of the night, Lyra realized something new. She was no longer alone. The alley was quiet again, only the sound of crackling fire and heavy breathing filling the air. Callan leaned against the wall, his arm wrapped in bloody cloth. His body was tired, but his eyes stayed sharp. Lyra sat close to him, her small hands pressing down on the bandage to slow the bleeding. "You've lost too much blood," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her eyes searched his face, pale in the firelight. "Why did you fight so hard? You could have left me." Callan gave a tired smile. "Because leaving you was never an option." His voice was low, steady, but his body swayed with exhaustion. Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of her past Still lingered all her life, no one had stayed. People turned their backs, they chose themselves, yet here was a human, wounded and weak, but still sitting beside her, still protecting her. She tightened the cloth around his arm. He winced but did not pull away. "Hold still," she murmured. Her small fingers were clumsy, but her touch was gentle. For the first time, she wasn't the one being cared for. She was the one caring. Callan watched her quietly. His eyes softened as she worked. "You're stronger than you think, Lyra," he said. Her head jerked up, eyes wide. "No one has ever said that to me." "Well, they were wrong," Callan replied. His voice was steady despite his pain. "I saw you stand against the dogs, trembling, bleeding, but still fighting. That's strength." Lyra's throat tightened. Her hands froze on the bandage. Tears filled her eyes. She turned her face away, whispering, "All my life. They told me I was weak, useless, a burden." "Then they lied," Callan said firmly. His gaze locked on her. "Don't let their voices live inside you." The words struck deep into her heart. She felt them echo inside, louder than all the cruel things she had ever heard. For the first time, she dared to imagine that maybe she was more than the names they had thrown at her. The fire burned lower. The night grew colder. Lyra shivered and pulled her arms around herself. Callan noticed and shifted, pulling his torn jacket from his shoulders and placing it over her. She looked at him in shock. "But you're cold too," he smirked faintly. "I've been cold before, I'll survive, you need it more." The warmth of the jacket surrounded her, heavy and rough, but it felt like safety. She clutched it close, her eyes stinging again. No one had ever given her something without expecting payment, yet this human gave freely without hesitation. She leaned closer. Almost without thinking, her shoulder brushed against his. His warmth bled into her, and for the first time in years, she did not feel the sting of loneliness. But danger still lingered. Callan's eyes scanned the shadows often, his body tense. Despite his injuries, he whispered, "We can't stay here, the dogs might come again, or worse." Lyra's heart raced. "Worse? What could be worse?" "People," Callan answered, his jaw tightened. "Not every threat has fangs. Sometimes people are hungrier than beasts." Lyra swallowed hard, remembering the guards, remembering the merchants who had turned away. She nodded slowly. "Then, where will we go?" Callan looked at her, his eyes steady. "Wherever we can, but we'll go together." Her breath caught. "Together?" "Yes," he said simply. "If you want me to." Her lips parted. No one had ever asked what she wanted. No one had ever offered to walk beside her. She felt a warmth inside, brighter than the fire. She nodded quickly. I want that." For the first time, a small smile touched her face. It was weak, trembling, but real. Callan saw it and felt a faint hope stir in his chest. The silence stretched again, softer now, not heavy but calm. Lyra leaned against him, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. His arm hung limp, still bleeding beneath the cloth, but he didn't move away. Her eyes closed slowly, the firelight flickering across her face. She whispered before sleep claimed her. "You're not a monster, Callan. You're the first person who ever saw me." Callan's throat tightened. His gaze stayed on the fire. His voice came low, almost a whisper. "And you're the first who ever reminded me what it means to care." The night passed with danger waiting in the shadows. But in that small circle of firelight, something powerful was born. It wasn't just survival anymore. It wasn't just one helping the other. A bond had formed, fragile but strong. Something both of them had been missing all their lives. And though the darkness around them stayed dangerous, inside that bond there was light. Morning came slowly, the sky turning from black to gray. The fire had died, leaving only cold ashes. Callan stirred awake, his arms still wrapped in rough bandages. His body was weak, but his eyes opened sharply, always alert. Beside him, Lyra slept against his shoulder, her small frame curled beneath his jacket. For a moment, he just watched her breathe. It was strange, comforting even. He had not allowed himself to rest near anyone in years. Yet here she was, A young alien girl who had once been nothing but a stranger, and now she was something more. Lyra woke with a start, her eyes blinking in the weak light. When she saw Callan still there beside her, still breathing, her heart eased. For a moment she feared he would vanish like all the others she had lost, but he hadn't left. He had stayed. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice soft, almost shy. "And you're alive," Callan replied with a faint smile. His tone was rough but gentle. The street outside the alley was already busy, merchants shouting, machines rolling. The smell of food drifted, but when the people's eyes caught sight of Callan, their voices dropped to whispers. Some sneered, some glared. A human with an alien girl, such a sight was strange, even dangerous. Two guards appeared at the edge of the street, the same ones from before, their faces twisted with disgust. "You again," one spat. "Didn't we warn you?" "Humans don't belong here." Lyra froze, fear rushing back into her chest. She gripped Callan's arm, whispering, "They'll take you. They'll kill you." But Callan stood tall, ignoring his wound. His voice was calm, steady. "She's with me." The guards laughed harshly. "With you? She's nothing. And you're worse than nothing. Step aside before we drag you both into the street." Lyra's heart raced. This was the moment when anyone else would abandon her. But Callan didn't move. He shifted his stance, placing himself firmly in front of her once more. His words cut through the morning air. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The crowd gasped. Some whispered in disbelief. Some shook their heads. The guards sneered and lifted their weapons, but before they could strike, something unexpected happened. Lyra pushed herself forward, stepping out from behind Callan. Her small frame trembled, but her voice rang clear. "No, he saved me when no one else did." The crowd turned, eyes widening. Lyra's voice grew stronger, fueled by the memory of nights alone, of the fight with the dogs, of the warmth of the fire. "All of you turned away when I begged for food. All of you ignored me when I was bleeding, but this human, he fought for me, he gave me food, he gave me life." The guards faltered for a moment, surprised by her outburst. The crowd murmured, some uncomfortable, some looking away in shame. Callan's jaw tightened. He had not asked for her defense, yet hearing her speak stirred something inside him. Her voice was not weak anymore. It was strong. The guards snarled, "You think words will save you? We should drag you both away and end this." Callan gripped the pipe at his side, ready for another fight. But before violence could begin, an older merchant stepped forward from the crowd, his face lined, his eyes heavy. He looked at Lyra, and then at Callan. "She speaks truth," he said slowly. "I saw it with my own eyes. The human saved her from the dogs. He fought when no one else did." The murmurs grew louder, more heads nodded, some voices agreed. "Yes, I saw too." "It's true." The guards hesitated, their authority cracking under the weight of the crowd. One spat to the side in frustration. "Keep your stray then, but don't expect mercy next time." With that, they turned and marched away. Silence hung for a moment. Then the merchant stepped closer, dropping a small pouch of bread at Lyra's feet. "Eat, child," he said quietly. "And take care of him." Lyra's eyes widened, her lips trembled. She looked at Callan, then back at the merchant. Slowly, she nodded, clutching the bread like treasure. The crowd began to disperse, whispers fading into the morning noise. But the moment had changed something. They were no longer completely invisible. For the first time, someone had spoken for them. Lyra turned to Callan, her eyes bright despite the tears. "You stayed," she whispered. "You didn't leave me even when they came." Callan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and firm. "I told you, Lyra, you're not alone anymore." Her heart swelled. She believed him now, truly believed. The bond they had formed was not fragile anymore, it was solid, stronger than fear. She slipped her small hand into his, her voice quiet but certain. "Then, let's go together." Callan nodded, his lips curved in a rare smile. Together, they walked away from the alley, away from the ashes of the fire. The morning sun broke through the clouds, pale but warm, casting light on the broken streets. Lyra clutched the bread in one hand and Callan's rough fingers in the other. For the first time in years, she felt hope rising inside her. For the first time, she dared to imagine a future. And as they disappeared into the crowd, one truth became clear. This was no longer just survival. This was the beginning of something new, a new bond, a new family, a new beginning.